No, that's all right. No, actually, this was, you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, because I read that you said somewhere in one of your interviews that you like the way artificial intelligence is done in Europe more so than it is done in the US. Yet, if you think of sort of the global playing field, there is the US and then there is China. The US has an approach of opening up, the markets and letting the corporates do their thing, and China has the approach of, the government is just going to lead the way, and then it's going to give subsidies and grants to organizations that are going to play by the government's rules. What do you think of that kind of dichotomy, or like the binary view of how to do AI, and where is Europe's place in the conversation?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I've been thinking about that a lot, so I might feel differently by the time you release this than I do now, but I'll tell you my current guess. Right. I first of all, I don't think America and China are as different as you say. As I mentioned, there is massive investment, especially in California. Joan Didion wrote a book about Where I Come From or something like that, about California, and the amount of money that was put into bootstrapping that kind of business ecosystem. So in some ways, the main difference is that China set up the Great Firewall, and that allowed their tech companies sort of a range to compete. And then, and so now they have all this big tech piling up where there is a government to do that redistribution. So redistribution normally happens by governments. That's almost the definition of government, that you kind of take resources from a bunch of people somehow, and then you build a wall and you defend them. So that's almost like what government is basically about, if nothing else, creating security. And then you can think about all the other social well-being as a form of security, because you have better, happier citizens, whatever, that's a kind of security. So you could say that's all there is to government. So the point is that now that we have these transnational companies, we have a problem with the redistribution of everything that's not happening inside of China, right? But you're right that there's this, I'm not saying they're exactly equivalent, there is this incredibly frightening autocratic stuff happening in China right now, and what they're doing against the Uyghurs.
I saw your tweet. I was just reading The Economist, that article about Xinjiang.
Yeah,
and what
and they've got, it's terrible, like 33 people got stabbed, that's terrible, but it's nothing like September 11th, it's nothing like what happened in Spain or what happened in London, or I guess it's approaching, because some of those things are hundreds of people dead instead of thousands. But the point is that we gave up part of our liberal democracy or whatever. Like now we have to take our shoes off. If you're in America, you still take your shoes off for no reason in the airport to make people feel safer, right? Mm-hmm. But we were only willing to go so far, and China is saying, yeah, just no. We can micromanage this, and I think it's. I think they're wrong. But maybe they don't care that they're wrong. Maybe what is the long-term game that they're playing? I don't know. Anyway, maybe I shouldn't speculate on that. Let's talk about what you asked before. Again, we see these big giants. We see the big tech giants in both China and in the United States. And I would say that might be the sign of sort of under-regulation, because maybe something just pops out that way. We also have like these amazing universities in America, but then we have this massive amount of people with no education, and we have this incredible number of fake education. Donald Trump got sued for it, and then he settled right after he got elected, right? People ripping off people that want to go to college, and beauty colleges that are just entirely about taking money from the federal government and giving it to the college and bankrupting some students in the meantime, right? So in this really under-regulated area, then you sometimes have super creative things happen that turn into really interesting companies. But I don't think Europe should be too depressed about that, because like I said, they've had the world's largest economy. The Eurozone, so economies are defined by currencies, and the Eurozone has been the world's largest economy since 2007. Mm-hmm. So something is going right here. There's an awful lot of money, there's a lot of wealth. And that's actually one of the things that Google says when they say, oh, you think we're too big, but look at all the companies in Europe, all these SMEs or whatever, that are using our tools. And there's a huge amount of AI in Europe. It's just that none of it's like big household names or barely household names, right? Mm-hmm. I know in Bath, my little town is like, I don't know if they currently are, but it used to be the biggest company in the world for taking down phishing. They would figure out when people sent phishing emails, right? And it's just in Bath. It's in like 3 Georgian buildings. And I swear that they have like a third of their workforce are interns from my university, you know. But you can do that. So there's a whole lot of these companies that are creating great value that they just don't have the household name, you know, because that's not what they need. That's not the way they do business. So.
But then kind of Europe took the stance of being at the forefront of trying to regulate and, you know, talk about data protection and privacy. There, Europe is the player. And, well, you know, European Commission.
Yeah, I think that's because Europe is really leading. They are actually thinking about how do you protect their citizens, and they are making a more robust system, I think. I think that one other really interesting thing that's happening is this new, I don't know what it's currently called, data lake or something, but that they've realized, just like with GPS, and again, here's the thing, where, you know, America did this system first, and they had all these satellites up, and then Europe kind of said, oh, well, we should have a second system just in case something goes wrong with the first system, right? You know, and right now you can think of more different ways that could go wrong, right? But similarly, they're saying, oh, maybe we need to make up, you know, this national. Now this is really weird. Can you compete with Google in terms of having, you know, like, well, hyper-national, it's the EU, but anyway, sort of a publicly funded data set, so that you can build the AI off of that. Now, some people think that China has this incredible advantage because they don't care about their citizens' privacy. Their citizens care about their citizens' privacy. It's interesting. They are doing things like covering up cameras and stuff. So the citizens aren't crazy about what's going on. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think the people who think that are forgetting like basic, you know, stats 101. When you first learn about statistics, you learn why you don't need to have a poll of every single citizen to predict an election, right? And so similarly, and this is one of the scary things, we used to talk about data hygiene, like people should learn how to, like, you know, hide their information or something. But we can't even get people to wash their hands. And it's really important to, you know, hygiene, right? You know, same thing with digital literacy. There are people who can't read. Right? And if you can't even read, you're not going to have digital literacy. Or maybe not all of it anyway. There are some things that are easier depending on what your problem is with reading. But anyway, the point is that the data that we have from the people who are willing to share it and don't care is sufficient that we can build really good models. And when you have a really good model, then you need hardly any data to make a prediction about a new person. And that was the whole thing with Cambridge Analytica, that they said, oh, I saw this recently with a video that was like, we got 200,000 people's data in America, and now we have a model of every single adult, you know? Because that was enough information from Facebook that they could pretty much figure out what the whole population was doing. Now, they may have been exaggerating because they're trying to raise money, but you can watch the video of the guy saying whatever those numbers were. I was just making up, I can't remember if it was 200,000, it may have been even fewer. But the point was that there was a mistake that Facebook made, which I don't see who's going to do it, but I would love to see them get like sued down to the ground for it. That was that, you know, around 2014, they just would, if you asked for someone's data, they said, oh, I'm interested in that kind of person, they would just hand you all the information about them and their friends, right? Whereas if you go to Google and you say, I'm interested in, you know, this kind of person that might buy my car or whatever, they don't give you any individual information. They just say, oh yeah, we can find those people, give us your advertisement, we'll get it to them, right? So, and it's not just about like Google being good and Facebook being bad, it's about Google and like 70% of tech being good, and Facebook and about 30% of tech being bad. And so we need someone to enforce and say, those of you guys that were doing the wrong thing with data, you know, maybe they should be penalized now for what they did 5 or 10 years ago. Or maybe we should just say, okay, now we know that's bad, and anyone who's still doing that is in deep trouble, right? But either way, you need some kind of coherent political will. And one of the problems right now is that we've kind of screwed up the coherence of our political will. You know, that I feel that I sometimes feel that we're in a sort of the third European war, because we're dismantling each other's infrastructure. But not by dropping bombs, by doing these kinds of psyops, and also by cyber attacks, and it's not even like there's nobody's dying. People are dying because they're losing their healthcare systems, or whatever the stress like the people in Puerto Rico. There's all kinds of ways that people are dying. So, but we aren't having our buildings blown up. Yeah. But other than that, anyway. So, and of course, people aren't being forced to fight on each other, except for in Syria. I don't know. There's probably a few other places.